Cameron Smith and Jon Rahm are two of the biggest names LIV Golf ever bought. Between them, 3 major championships, 2 LIV individual season titles, 2 team titles, and somewhere in the neighborhood of $400 million in Saudi money. In February of 2026, both of them were given the one and only chance the PGA Tour was offering them to come home. Both said no. Then in April, the Saudis announced they were pulling the plug, and what Smith and Rahm have done in the 8 weeks since is the part nobody saw coming. Stick around. The story is bigger than one announcement. To understand why this matters, you have to go back to the start. Cameron Smith joined LIV Golf in August of 2022, 3 months after winning the 150th Open Championship at St. Andrews. He was 28 years old, the reigning Players' Championship winner, ranked number 2 in the world, and the most marketable young talent the sport had produced in a decade. He signed for a reported $100 million. His decision was the one that genuinely shocked the golf world, because every defection before him could be explained away. Dustin Johnson was 38, Brooks Koepka and Bryson DeChambeau had been injured, Patrick Reed's form was declining. Smith was the first player to leave with everything still in front of him. He cited the schedule, he cited the family pull, he admitted the money played a role, and then he went to LIV and built something that by every metric the league cared about, was a success. He captained Ripper GC, the Australian team that became LIV's most beloved franchise. He won 3 individual LIV tournaments. He earned an estimated $50 million across 4 seasons on top of his signing bonus. LIV Golf Adelaide, the Australian flagship event Smith helped anchor, drew over 1.1 million spectators across 4 days in 2026, a new attendance record for professional golf in Australia. As a team captain and a commercial property, Cameron Smith was exactly what LIV Golf had paid for. The rest of his career fell apart. Smith missed the cut at the 2024 Open at Royal Troon. He missed every major cut in 2025. He missed the cut at the 2026 Masters with rounds of 74 and 77. 6 consecutive missed cuts in golf's biggest events for a player who had won the Open Championship at the home of golf just 4 years earlier. The narrative shifted from whether he had made the right call to whether he could still play. Jon Rahm arrived 2 years later. In December of 2023, the Spaniard signed a deal, reported at over $300 million, walking away from the PGA Tour at the absolute peak of his career. He was the reigning Masters champion. He had won 11 PGA Tour events. He had been the world number 1 as recently as that summer. His defection was, until that moment, the single most expensive transaction in the history of professional sports. And unlike Smith, Rahm did not lose his golf game on LIV. He won the LIV individual season title in 2024. He won it again in 2025. His Legion 13 team won the team title in 2025 as well. At the 2026 PGA Championship at Arnhem, Rahm contended into Sunday and finished tied for 4th. He is, by any honest measurement, the best golfer currently on LIV Golf, and arguably one of the 3 best players in the world regardless of tour. In January of 2026, the door cracked open. Brooks Koepka had mutually parted ways with LIV at the end of 2025. The PGA Tour, under new CEO Brian Rowlap, created what it called the Returning Member Program. The terms were narrow and specific. The pathway was open only to players who had won a major championship or the Players' Championship between 2022 and 2025. 4 players qualified. Koepka, who had already left, Smith, Rahm, DeChambeau. The window opened in late January and closed February 2nd, 2 days before LIV Golf's first tournament of the 2026 season. The cost of admission was steep, $5 million to charity. A 5-year forfeiture of PGA Tour player equity shares, a sum estimated by analysts at between $50 million and $85 million. No FedEx Cup bonus money for 2026. No signature event eligibility. Koepka took the deal. Smith, Rahm, and DeChambeau did not. At LIV's Media Week in South Florida, both players were asked directly. Rahm said, "Yeah, I'm not planning on going anywhere. I wish Brooks the best, and as far as I'm concerned, I'm focused on LIV for this year and hoping my team can repeat as champs." Smith was sharper. He said, "I have made my bed and I am going to sleep in it. I feel like I am in a really good place in my career and my life, my family life, and I do not need to change it." There was no anger in either answer. There was a finality. Both men had taken the money, taken the contracts, taken the lifestyle, and decided that the price of getting back into the PGA Tour was higher than they were willing to pay. 3 months later, the math changed. In April of 2026, Saudi Arabia's public investment fund informed LIV Golf staff that it would no longer fund the league after the end of the 2026 season. The PIF had poured over $5 billion into LIV across 4 years. Losses had reached nearly $500 million in 2024 alone. LIV's chief executive had told the Financial Times that breaking even was still 5 to 10 years away. The Saudis had heard enough. One of LIV's scheduled 2026 events was postponed almost immediately. Inside the locker room, the calculus that had governed every player's decision for the previous 4 years collapsed in a week. The PGA Tour's response was telling. A Golf Digest source confirmed that the returning member program was not expected to be renewed. The one-time offer that Smith and Rahm had turned down in February was gone. The door behind them had closed, and then the speculation started. Quick pause here. If you think Smith and Rahm should be welcomed back without conditions, say welcome back. If you think they should pay the same price Brooks Koepka paid, say make them pay. I read every one. Hit subscribe before you scroll away, because the next chapter of this story is going to play out across the entire summer, and there's a lot more coming. Here is what nobody expected. According to Golf Week reporter Adam Schupak, a PGA Tour caddy has indicated that representatives for both Rahm and Smith have been quietly re-engaging with PGA Tour officials, not publicly, not on the record, through management. The conversations, according to the reporting, are about whether the door the tour closed in February could be reopened under different terms, and the timing matters. Rahm and Smith both publicly insisted in February that they were staying. Then the Saudis pulled the plug. And now their camps are reportedly back at the table. Smith, for his part, is still holding the line in public. At the PGA Championship at Arena he insisted LIV would survive past 2026. When asked who exactly had given him that assurance, he smiled and said, "I promise you will hear it first from someone else, rather than me." He also fired his swing coach Grant Field, the only swing coach he had ever had since the age of 9. Then he shot a closing 68 on Sunday and tied for 7th, his first made cut in a major in nearly 2 years. "It feels great to play nice," he told reporters. "You do not work hard to play crap." Rahm's situation is different, and far more complicated. He has an ongoing dispute with the DP World Tour over membership reinstatement, an impasse that carries real consequences. His 2027 Ryder Cup eligibility runs through the European circuit. If he does not resolve the DP World Tour issue, he is not eligible to defend or compete for Europe at Bethpage Black. The DP World Tour has, according to multiple reports, been actively looking for a path back for him. Rahm has not made it easy. At the Masters he was unapologetic. He gave no indication of softening his position. At the PGA Championship, he was direct. "My job is to play golf. Luckily, I'm decent at it, and that's what I can focus on." Here is the part of the story that the headlines are missing. The PGA Tour's audience on Rahm is much harder than its audience on Smith. The view from inside Ponte Vedra, according to multiple sources, is that Rahm's defection at the end of 2023 may have prolonged the entire LIV conflict by a full year. By the time Rahm crossed over, the framework agreement between the PGA Tour and PIF was advancing. LIV was on the financial ropes. Rahm's signature gave the Saudi project the validation it needed to keep going. Players inside the PGA Tour locker room have not forgotten that. Cameron Smith, by contrast, left in 2022, when LIV's future was still wide open. He took the money before there was a framework agreement to disrupt. Whatever return mechanism the tour eventually offers, it will not treat the two players the same. So what did Smith and Rahm just do that nobody expected? They went quiet. After 4 years of public commitment to LIV, after publicly turning down the only structured pathway home, after publicly insisting in April that the league would survive, both men have stopped fighting the conversation. Their teams are reportedly talking to the tour. Smith fired the coach who built his swing. Rahm contended at the PGA Championship and refused to take the bait when asked about LIV's future. Neither one of them is begging to come back. Neither one of them is committing to LIV either. They are doing the one thing nobody expected from two players who spent 4 years being the loudest defenders of the Saudi project. They are waiting. The 18 months ahead are now the most interesting personal stories in the entire LIV saga. If LIV finds a new investor and survives, both Smith and Rahm become central figures in whatever the league becomes next. If LIV folds at the end of 2026, both men need a structured deal with the PGA Tour, and both deals will be harder and more expensive than the one they turned down. Rahm has a Ryder Cup problem that Smith does not. Smith has a swing rebuild problem that Rahm does not. Neither one has a path that looks anything like the one Brooks Koepka walked back through in January. What nobody expected is exactly what is now happening. The two loudest defenders of LIV Golf are letting their management teams do the work in private while they go out and play. That is not the behavior of men who are committed to LIV for life. It is the behavior of men who have started doing the math on what the next decade of their careers actually looks like, and who are not willing to make the same public statement twice if the second one might be wrong. The next 18 months will tell us whether the bet was worth it. If this one landed for you, drop a like before you scroll away. It is the single biggest thing that tells YouTube to push these stories to other golf fans who might never see them otherwise. Subscribe if you want more of these, the kind that take the long view instead of the loud one. There are more coming.